Hello everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Teaching Tales. Once again, I am Brent, your host, and today I am honored and very excited to have with me as a guest my superintendent, Mr. Pat Kelley. He's going to join us today. Pat, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have an extremely busy schedule.
Oh, thank you, Brent. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, Pat, give us a little background kind of in terms of, tell us a little about yourself in regard to where you started teaching and that type of thing.
Well, I started teaching back in 1990 down in San Diego County, and my wife and I came up here shortly thereafter. So I've been here in Murrieta for 26 years, and so saw our district, our community grow in such an amazing way. I think we had about 2,000 students when we first got here, and now we have 23,000. And that tells a little bit of the story of the opportunity that presented itself during the years that I was here, and I've just been very fortunate and blessed to have served as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and moved up through human resources, and now superintendent of the district.
Well, that's when I started this podcast. You were one of the people I thought of first in terms of I would love to have you on, because I've said we all have stories. I mean, you think, oh my gosh, I could write a book with all the stories. This is like the audio book of stories that everyone has to tell. And you've, from middle school teacher, like you said, middle school teacher, AP, principal, all the way up to superintendent, you have a lot of stories to tell. I have a lot of stories. And when we were talking off camera, off mic, before we started recording, you mentioned that you wanted to kind of share your story and how awareness is in terms of how sometimes personal can affect professional. Is that right? So
yeah, I thought I could share a little bit about some of those years and how it interfaced with the job I had at the time, but how my personal life and the things that were happening in my personal life also shaped professionally how you take a look at our profession and what we do and our mission and how we accomplish that. But as I said, when my wife and I came up here back in 1991, that was before kids, and now 26 years later, we have 4 kids. Well, those kids came to us in a little bit different ways. We had 3 biological kids, and my wife and I, being educators, we had 3 kids who just fell right into school. They loved it. Yeah. They did their homework. They learned things readily and easily. They were eager. They were bright-eyed. They did things that they were told to do, and we thought we were just super parents, and did some great things. And as a teacher, and even as a young administrator, I found myself to be, I'll use the word judgmental, about other families and other people, and thinking, well, this is not that difficult. This is easy to be able to have your kids do this and have them learn at this rate.
Why aren't you doing your homework? Why aren't you getting your homework done?
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't understand what in the world would be impeding people from this. And then something very humbling happened to us, and it was really a true blessing that shaped us, certainly very personally. But I have found that it did and still does on a daily basis guide me in my job today, professionally. And so I really love talking with administrators and teachers about that shift. And that change for us came back in 2004, and we adopted our 4th child, and he came from Russia, and he was 6 years old at the time, and he's now almost 20, and it has been an absolute joy for our family. But me personally as a father and as an educator have learned so much more because of him than I did with our other 3 kids.
Sure.
About education and about kids and the challenges that are really facing educators today. This is complex work. It is very difficult. it's humbling. But Saroja came to us. We had had the opportunity to adopt him at 6 years old, and we enrolled him the week before Christmas break of first grade back in 2004, and he didn't know a word of English, and so it has been really great having the perspective of an English learner and really knowing what it's like as language develops and how that impacts so many different things along the way.
Because you had the students in your class,
Right.
but now you've got him in your home,
Right.
and seeing it from the other side.
Yeah, and saying that thing one time doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. And as a parent, he taught us that quite often, that the things that we took for granted that just happened so easily and naturally, this took work. And he was not different or atypical than a lot of kids that we see in our community. He's very normal, very average, awesome young man, but he was just wired different than we were. And so we've just gained such an appreciation for the beauty of different and honoring and loving on, hey, it's a different package, it's a different wiring, it looks different, and that's okay. So then, as a professional, what do we do when that comes about, and how do we make that work for all kids? Because we've got lots,
And they don't all fit into that box,
right?
That mold, if you will. As a parent myself, I can totally relate in terms of the way I taught before I had kids, as opposed to, especially when they got to the elementary level, which I taught for my career, because I'd never been asked. The homework assignments that I had sent home in the past, now when my son or daughter came home with that, it'd be like, what's the point of this? But I had to stop and look in the mirror and say, yeah, Brent, what was the point of that? Because you gave the same type of assignment, and it was humbling, because like you, it's kind of like you did. But I think until you're in those, you've walked a mile in those shoes.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that we have to be mindful and take ourselves out of our circumstances that may limit our understanding of what kids and what families' stories are and what they're bringing to the table. Because they are complex and they are difficult to work through. But I think one of the things that we've certainly learned is our role as educators is first and foremost, I believe, that we create and establish healthy, positive, loving, nurturing relationships with kids. When one human being does that with another human being, learning can then happen.
Yeah.
And that is such a basic need that needs to be established for every single one of our students. And that's tough because they're all coming from different places, and some of those connections are so easy to make and some are more difficult. And so, as I go back and think about our son's progression as he went through the K-12 system, those relationships were absolutely critical as he was learning language, as he was learning literacy, as he was beginning his career with the things that he needed to do to be a successful student. And then as he progressed through middle school and then through high school, what we found is that we had a young man who really wasn't interested too much in sitting 6 hours a day in a school. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that. But our schools are designed in such a way where it can be torture.
I would argue that most aren't interested in sitting for 6 hours a day.
Right.
They're just compliant, and they will.
That's right. And that was something we had to learn because we had 3 very, very compliant kids who could fake it real well.
Yeah.
And it never caused an issue. But Saroja did a good job, and he worked hard. And Christy and I, as parents, and I tell this story, we poured everything we could into him to try to help him be successful. And I'm proud to say we pulled out a 2.2 GPA by the time he graduated.
Go.
And I'm proud of that because his abilities, he certainly was capable of that, but there were things that his desires and what made him tick wasn't necessarily the traditional model of where it comes easy for kids.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, that's where you really begin to learn this role of continuum of being able to provide support for the kid who just may not like school as much. It's hard work. I think at the early years that relationship building is so critical.
Yeah.
Where they're feeling that there's good people here, I like them, my social circle is one that is edifying to me. That's important throughout. But then as it gets more complex as they get older,
Yeah.
and what we begin to really find the need for, and my role now as a superintendent, is that heart for the kids who are looking at a different path, especially directly out of high school and into the workforce and the preparation that's needed there. Here in our community, I think we do the college thing pretty well. We have good paths for kids to be able to access college. But I lay awake at night thinking about those kids who need to maneuver, who don't want to necessarily, that a traditional education is not their path they want to take, but how they maneuver that. I like to say every kid who graduates, who leaves our system, every single one of them needs more education. That is a given. But today that education can come in so many different ways.
Many different forms than it used to.
A 4-year, a 2-year, military, apprenticeships.
Yep.
Those types of things are invaluable. And so what we found with our son, because we had three kids who went to went and have gone to very good universities and very tough universities to get into, and their path was a little easier for there. We found it much more difficult to help maneuver and guide Saroja on his path into career. He hit a snag. He wanted to go military, and that was a great option. And then there was a medical thing that came up that put that barrier in front of him. And so we began to look in other places. And I'll be honest with you, he's working full time, and we're right now, and we're extremely proud of him. But he's still searching. He's still searching for what will that path be in regards to a certificate, in regards to a trade, to a training that's going to take me to the next level, because he knows that the traditional 4-year college path is not for him, at least right now.
Yeah.
Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10, who knows? But we definitely know and see that he's wired different. But those are the types of things that I think us being open to as educators to say, we do the college thing well, we need to put exceptional effort and focus into our kids who are taking a path that is directly into workforce. And that's why I have a passion for career tech education and trying to hook our kids who have a harder time finding that niche into that path.
And not looking down on that.
Oh my gosh, no.
Because it's a different path. It's not a better path. It's a different. It's a different path. And so many people, you look at all these success stories, and who didn't go to college or went to college for a year, and our major corporations were founded by people that. I have a good friend who he never went to college. He went straight into the workforce and worked his way up, and he is in a position where he's making a whole lot more money than I am, and he's doing something he loves. But he got that apprenticeship type thing and really worked at it, and he is hugely successful.
I have spoken in the last month to Murrieta Valley Unified School District graduates. One went to a 4-year university and is having a difficult time finding a job in their field. And so they work at a position that is close to minimum wage with close to $100,000 in student loan debt. That is a very real problem.
Yeah.
And it's something that's important that we guide and help discern our young people toward different things. Conversely, talk to another grad about 5 years out, makes $120,000 in the computer field, never went to a formal traditional university, did a lot of education to learn how this software works, how to be certified with this, and is set himself up in a very positive way. And that's a really important thing that we acknowledge for our families and for our students. There are a lot of different paths that not only are honorable and critical for our economy, but that will provide you a path to have a very fulfilling life and have the ability to raise a family. And there's no magic one single path to do that. And so, but this is why that college track, that's an easy one to navigate. That's an easy one to navigate. The other one, that apprenticeship, that taking a look at the different types of certifications that you can get, that's tough.
Yeah.
That is difficult. And you have to really be adept. What we've learned as parents now is be adept at maneuvering that and helping to make those connections for families. And so my heart is there because we have a lot of those kids and that's the path they need. And our economy and our region needs them to be fully functional and to be trained and to be ready for that workforce. And so I really see as a core mission for us to make that easy for them to be able to figure out how to do it.
I think just the awareness. I mean, hearing your story again, personally, how that helped shape you professionally, and I mean over the years and now today, how it's become such a focus of what you stand for and what our district stands for, and I'm proud to be a part of that. But I just think the awareness of seeking that out. What is it that you, meaning speaking to a student, what is it that you are passionate about? What is it that you want to do? I mean, before we started recording we talked about I wish my teacher knew, and it's something that I saw on Twitter several years ago, and I encourage my teachers now at the beginning of the year, and we're at the elementary level, but you want to know that. You ask your kids, I wish my teacher knew, because that's how you find out. Right. Not everybody's going to fit into that box. I wish my teacher knew my dad's in prison. I wish my teacher knew I don't eat breakfast in the morning. I wish my teacher knew that these things that, oh my goodness, or I wish my teacher knew that I love to write. I love to, things that could take you in a completely, you could help nurture that, foster that.
Yeah.
That could take them in a completely different direction.
Brent, you are really hitting on something. We have to push on these topics. We have to push on asking those things. One of the things I'm most proud of in the district is our work that starts in middle school up through high school that culminates in the senior culmination project, where our seniors, in order to graduate, have to present their plan for their next step in life. And the reason that we do that is not to give them another hoop in order to graduate and that it's an arbitrary thing, but that we have to be purposeful about thinking about what is our next step and how are we going to do it. And when you communicate that with the adult supports in the community and with the school district, those are messages to us of, wow, we've got to work on that one better. Here are some things that we can do to help make these connections happen for kids a little bit more smoothly and readily, so that they can actually achieve their goals that they're setting out.
Well, it resonates when you told me like kind of what you wanted to share. It's so personal, again, as a parent, how that can affect my daughter, who is now in high school. I remember when she went into 4th grade. And she was going to a new school. We had moved, and she was now going to a new school, and she was anxious, understandably so, about coming to a new school. She was going from primary to upper, and it was going to be a tough thing. And I remember at that time, I was still teaching 5th grade, and I was in my room getting ready over the last few days of summer. And I remember, as I was getting ready, thinking about my daughter, she was really having a hard time. And I remember thinking, man, if she could just see her classroom where she's going to be for the next 180 days, if she could just hear her teacher's voice, do you know how much that would help her? And it was like, bing, the light bulb went off. I came back the next day with a flip cam and took a video of my classroom and posted it, just basically gave a guided tour. Hey, boys and girls, if you're going to be in my class this year, this is what your room's going to look like, and just did the whole thing. But the inspiration from that, it wasn't the 32 kids who were going to be on my roster. It was my daughter. Mm-hmm. Because I thought, wow, if she could have had this, she would have slept better the night before. She would have been so much more comfortable. So personally, a family situation affected me professionally. Did everybody watch that video? No. But if one kid did and slept better the night before, if one family, if one mom or dad saw that and said, wow, he took the time to do that, and now she's read that, because first day of school, let's be honest, that's a stressful day. Mm-hmm. And if they come in and say, oh, there's the bean bags that I saw in the video or something like that. So if anyone's listening, I mean, just take your personal, that's not a bad thing. Take your personal experiences and learn from your mistakes, learn from your successes personally, let it shape you professionally.
Take your personal experiences and know what they answer, because many times, and realize and have the vulnerability to be able to say, wow, there is another world outside of my personal experiences, and sometimes we're lucky enough to have things thrown our way where we're forced to learn and look at things differently. And I see that as a gift. Yeah. I see that as a real gift when that happens. But if that's not there, at least an awareness of educators to be able to say, it is different, and I have to acknowledge that, and I have to constantly be thinking about how I make that significant connection for that kid, because it's that relationship that is going to be able to keep them going and hopeful and positive about where ultimately their path is leading. Mm-hmm. And those kids where it's just a little bit rougher patch in the K-12 system, they're the ones that I think we have to double down our efforts, because some of the other kids sail through just fine. Yep. No,
I hear you. No, I'm excited. In episode 6, I'm actually my dad. So if you're listening, tune into episode 6 next week, because I'm actually going to have my dad on, who is not a classroom teacher but has done a lot of things and taught a lot of people, and that's what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about relationships and just kind of piggyback on what we've started today. That it all starts with relationships, and I will close with Rita Pearson. I don't know if Pat, you've seen this TED Talk. Rita Pearson gave a TED Talk, and in it she talked about, one of her colleagues said, like, they don't pay me to like the kids, they pay me to teach them. And her response was, you know that kids don't learn from people they don't like.
That's right.
And it's all, I mean, if you don't have a relationship with them, the chances of you really impacting them to the fullest potential, it's going way down. So anyway, Pat, thank you so much. Totally appreciate it. And
thank you, Brent. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this immensely. And remember, everyone, thanks for listening. Really appreciate you. You can find this podcast if you're listening. I kind of thought about this. If you're listening, you probably already found it. You can find it on my website at brentculley.com on the podcast page. You can also subscribe in iTunes or Google Play. And if you like what you hear, give us a review. We would appreciate it. Once again, thanks so much, and we will see you next time.